I was obviously very expressive about winning that, and I ended up running back on the court, which I wasn't allowed to do. And there was no one there to stop me, and I was like, I would have asked, but there was no one there. So I run back out, start celebrating with some of the guys, and then the security comes running, grabs me, pulls me back to the locker room.
Welcome. I'm Mike Lacey with Beyond the Game, and we're here with you today. It's Friday, the day before BYU plays Colorado at home in basketball. And today I'm really excited because we're going to have a guest, Dawson Baker. And the more this season goes on, the more I realize we miss Dawson Baker. This kid contributed so much in prior years. His story is so compelling, and I've been, studying up a little bit on him, and I'm really excited to learn more from Dawson Baker and learn more of him. We want to talk a little bit about a piece of news or what was revealed today. We'll have this graphic put up. It was the Big 12 attendance, football attendance for all these schools. And we can go out and brag a lot, and this isn't a humble brag. We're just bragging. It's fun that our stadium, which is such an enjoyable place to watch a football game, that gets so exciting, especially that piece between the third and fourth quarters when Cosmo starts pounding his drum and the music starts playing, and even the players are down on the field dancing. It's a neat environment. It's way different than when I was playing back in the 1980s. People were a little more reverent. And reverent, I mean that in exactly the way we're talking about. It was almost like, hey, we're preparing for Sunday, the Sabbath day tomorrow. So we're not going to yell too loud. And if anyone stands up in their seats, we're going to yell at them because they're in our way. The stadium has changed quite a bit. It's fun that we have, and you can see, look at the attendance here. It's at Iowa State is right below BYU. They have really good attendance. Texas Tech at 60,000 plus. West Virginia at 54. It's interesting that in the 1980s, stadiums started in professional baseball and some in football, where to make the stadiums more comfortable and more just so that every seat had a good line of sight, a lot of stadiums were being built in the mid-size, in the 50,000, 45,000 range. And so I'm sure that a school like Utah at 51,700, they built their stadium specifically to be not above that so that they can fill it and that the seats are better. They go all the way around. I know that here at BYU, we talk a lot about, hey, let's expand our stadium. Let's fill in those corners. I don't know if engineering-wise that's possible, but let's look at that for just a couple more seconds. I'm proud of the Big 12. When you consider what was going on in the Pac-12 and schools on the West Coast, I don't know what was going on in NCAA football back then, but people stopped going to games. Even big schools like Cal and Stanford had a hard time. UCLA and USC weren't filling up their stadiums all the time. It's fun that the Big 12, the fans like to come to the games, and the games are enjoyable. Hey, today we're going to talk with Dawson Baker. He'll be on in a few minutes. Think about this. This year when he was in, he was shooting over 45%. I think it was 47% from the three-point line. We know of him last year and this year as being one of those guys who can penetrate on the dribble, keep his dribble going, and look for the kick, but also either kick it out, look for the shot, and either kick it out or hit a slashing guy, a backdoor pass to the basket. We miss that Dawson Baker role. Robert Wright the third, he's phenomenal at penetrating, but then most of the time he's looking for his shot and looking for a pass second. It would really be a compliment to have Dawson Baker on the team. So it'll be fun to visit with Dawson. I'm sure it's hard for him to sit on the bench when he could be contributing so much. But that young man, it'll be interesting to hear what his future, what lies in his future. If he intends to come back and play, which I hope, but maybe he doesn't have that capacity with medical red shirts and things like that. We'll visit with Dawson Baker coming up. Thank you. We are back. My name again is Mike Lacey, and I am pumped to have a young man that I feel like I know him because I've been watching this kid for years, or at least it feels like it. But Dawson Baker, if you're a BYU basketball fan, you know we miss him a bunch. Here he is, Dawson Baker. I was going to say in the flesh, but it's digital, guy.
How's it going? Grateful to be able to be here.
It's really good to have you here. I watched some videos of you, some interviews. There was a Deep Blue article on you that I thought was really good. But Dawson, let's just jump to one thing right now. There was an away game, and I'm watching it on TV, and you're down near the end of the bench. You're in your gray sweats, and you didn't look very happy. I mean, what's it like sitting the bench when you could be out there contributing?
Yeah, I know all too well about sitting out for injuries, and it's the worst thing about sports. And I always tell people sports are unfair. No matter how much you prepare or, give to the sport, sometimes it just doesn't go your way. And this past one has been probably the toughest one out of them all. And watching kind of the worst thing about kind of injuries and sitting out is just watching opportunities come and go when you can't really do anything about it. Sports is a lot of just capitalizing on opportunities, and you kind of want to walk away from your career, doing some great things and some great milestones, and to watch those things happen without you is always really, really hard. Um, but that's good that my body language, I need to be better about my body language, and that you're holding me accountable to that. But that's
You know what?
definitely a good thing, to be grateful about kind of the small things and just being around the team in whatever capacity I can be with the special group we have. So, yeah.
You really do have a special group. And you know what? I'm probably superimposing my own thoughts, because I was injured my senior year. I tore the ACL. And back then, back before modern medicine, and I'm almost being literal there, you really weren't expected to ever come back, And so I remember for me, it was more difficult to watch my teammates down on the field knowing that I couldn't go in and contribute. It was easier to watch a game or be in a game than it was sitting on the sideline. And so I'm probably just thinking, I know Dawson's not happy. Your body language is fine, brother. But what are your plans? What happens with Dawson Baker in the future?
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot more conversations I need to have with some people and kind of talk through all of that. I think I meet the threshold for a redshirt year. So I don't think I'm too concerned about meeting those qualifications. I think that will happen naturally. Um, but I think it was a hard shift for me just because I was mentally prepared for this to be my last year, and I was ready to kind of play on a great team and ride off on the sunset, and obviously that's just not the case this year. So I just have to shift my mindset in a lot of ways and prepare myself for another year if that's a possibility. And where do I want to be and what do I want to do for the next year? I got a wife and and other things to think about. Um, and so a lot of those things are going through my mind. But also, trying to give the coaches and other people that are going throughout their seasons, their time. Obviously, everything's not going to stop for me and what I want. And so just kind of waiting it out right now and just letting my mind kind of run its course. I think that's always a good thing, to make it just a quick decision right away is always kind of something I don't like to do. So letting me get time to marinate on all of it and feel it out it's something that's probably good for me. It's hard because it's, you want to know as much as the fans want to know, what's next and what do I shoot for. And but yeah, it's a slow process.
I'm proud of you. That's a very mature way to go about it because we all know, hey, there's so much glory and enjoyment in sports. Unlike my day, there's enough money to, pretend like you're in your career already with NIL, or maybe that's not the case. I mean, tell us, does NIL work for guys in the basketball program as well as in the football program?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think when I started college basketball, there was nothing guaranteed, right? You're guaranteed a scholarship and free education, which was great, like that was awesome. And so anything is just obviously awesome. And I know we're super fortunate at BYU with, a great backing from a lot of great donors and a fan base and school that cares about sports. And so we're definitely blessed. We have no reason to complain about anything financially with what we are given. And so that definitely weighs into, my decision and, obviously, um, financially it helps having NIL possibility and how much is that's going to make it worth it for me, to want to keep going or keep putting my body through it.
Yeah.
But yeah, NIL is great, and it definitely reaches basketball, definitely here at BYU, and we're grateful for it.
Well, in that deep blue that they did on you, it was really interesting to hear about your mission to Micronesia. And then the little video they had of, like a canoe going through some canals and getting to an island. Tell us a little bit about your experience serving in another part of the world when you really are from a very nice part of California. What was it like to take time off from school, take time off from the sport you love, and go serve the people of a third world
Now,
country?
it's a crazy experience, and I think for more of the people on the outside looking in, it's extremely crazy. I think for me, at a young age, seeing my older siblings go on a mission, and for me, it was no question. It was just part of the timeline in my life that I already kind of prepared mentally for. And so the decision to go was never a question for me. Um, and I'm grateful for that because I know it would have been pretty hard, especially given the circumstance with, going to college and playing sports and all that. And, my mission, I think it was a crazy experience, a very stark difference between where I grew up and, yeah, I mean, anywhere in America, just how you grow up and the way we were living out there was very humbling, and it was, super great for me to have that experience, and it was, sleeping on the floor, eating rice and fish every day, and being able to, put aside the worldly things and just go and preach the gospel was something that I'm super grateful for, and, something I'll never forget. I think that's a good, thing for me to look back when I go through injuries or go through hard things in my life and looking back on my mission and realizing that I can do really hard things and that, there's blessings on the other side of hard. And I'm super grateful for those things.
Well, Dawson, when you go to a third world country, you're probably not playing too much basketball or preparing for the next season. And yet a lot of coaches and fans say, "Oh, you BYU people, you have a 3-year redshirt program." Tell us how prepared you were for basketball and give us some of the pros and cons. I know that you come back more mature, maybe with a tenacity that you didn't have before, but physically, I doubt that the coaches get real excited about you coming back. Tell us, what is it really like to come back and play basketball after serving a mission?
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing that a lot of people don't understand is that a lot of people think, "Oh, you're older, you have more experience," but in reality, you don't play any more years of basketball than anyone else out there, because of those 2 years were dedicated to, serving God. Um, and I came back at an interesting time during COVID. I was had 2 more transfers left, so a couple more months left in my mission, and, COVID happened, so I got sent home, and I was at that threshold where you were kinda just done with your mission if you met that deadline. And so I got back a little early, and it's actually funny. I'm talking about this now. I was talking about today with one of the PTs at practice. But when I got home, everyone was kind of been off basketball for a while because of COVID. And I was at UC Irvine, and the trainers were kind of picking things back up, but it was kind of at the pace of people that were already kind of playing and back. And I kind of just refiner's fire was just thrown in, and how to make it work, and that first 2 weeks was, like, the most sore I've ever been, and, we didn't have the ability to use a gym yet. We'd be outside, and that was qualifications for us to work out, and we would just run. And so, it was a lot of running, super sore, and you kind of like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm cut out for this kind of thing," but then you quickly adjust after a couple of weeks. And it was good because COVID kind of made it a gradual progression. That was good for me since I was working back into shape and the basketball playing. Um, but honestly, what's kind of crazy about the whole thing is that I just felt super comfortable when I came back. Basketball came really quick, surprisingly. And what's funny enough is like in my high school career, I used to shoot the ball kind of back here. I kind of had an ugly shot. And I remember getting back from my mission and like, I want to change this to more center of my face. And I worked really, really hard that when I got back, I just got up shots, like thousands and thousands of shots a day. And just really just trying to, if you ever try to change a shot, especially later in your career, it's super hard and frustrating. Um, but I worked at it really well. It felt like it was coming really quickly. Um, and I felt like I was in a good space, just confidence wise for some reason, even though I had no reason to be confident. And I came into that situation where there wasn't really a guard in the at UC Irvine that was really the main guy or a veteran. Everyone's kind of in the same boat, which was good for me to be at a competitive level. And the coaches were kind of evaluating everyone at the same level, which was really good. And I just came in confident shooting. And some of those first practices, I was just hot, just on fire. And they were great feelings for me just because you just never know how it's going to go. You never played college basketball before, and to have practices where you're feeling like yourself, you're playing super good. It came back really quick, and obviously it ended up starting that year at UC Irvine, won a Big West Freshman of the Year, and it just kind of came back really quick. And so it was. I remember at the end of that year, we lost in the championship to go to March Madness, and I was just the only thing I do is cry and just be grateful for, just how the year turned out because it could have been so much worse. It could have been so different. And I was just so grateful for to have a year where I was super productive and I was so excited to see what the future years would look like for me and my career.
That's a unique story, Dawson, because a lot of guys come back from their missions and especially, call them specialty guys, but a shooter, I mean, that's a special gift. And to have the confidence and then the physical capacity, a lot of times guys say, hey, you might lose your touch in your mission. It sounds like you came back pretty darn fast.
Yeah, I don't think I ever lost the touch. And I don't think I even these years at BYU, I've sat out numerous times and come back and I don't feel like those things go away. Even this year, a lot of people don't know this, but I still have a cyst in my foot, and it's an issue for me. And so, starting this year, we were on and off with me the whole year. So I probably practiced 5 times, like true practice, before the season started. First, my first game against Villanova, and for some reason, just the touch comes back, the feel, it's like riding a bike, which is, I'm super grateful for that because it could be really hard, but making your first shot, making your first three, and I ended up shooting, close to 50% from three to start the year, and it just kind of came back really quick. And so I think that's something that's kind of been a good ability of mine and a blessing of mine is having confidence despite, the lack of ability to practice and just having that touch. That's something that's just kind of a natural thing for me, which I'm super grateful for.
The end of the season, especially the closer you get to NCAA's, the capacity to have some guys on the court who can drop that three in pretty consistently. I mean, we do miss you, and I wish you were able to go out and play. Depending on, again, how you and your wife decide to carry forward, as a fan, I'm hoping your choice is I'm coming back for one more year. I'll get a master's degree in something, right? Um,
Yeah.
but your life goes on and you want things to do, so it'll be very interesting to watch or to follow your journey with this injury. I know you had another injury. You came over, you transferred to UC from UC Irvine, the Anteaters, right?
Hmm.
And you came to BYU, and you were really highly recruited. Or when you went into the transfer portal, a lot of schools were really interested in. What was that like when you apparently you wore number one at UC Irvine because they're the only school that recruited you, but now you're heavily recruited. What did that feel like, Dawson?
It was cool. It was awesome. I think everyone kind of dreams of the recruitment going a certain way, and I never got that out of high school. And it was cool to see that going in the transfer portal, kind of proving a lot of people wrong and having every school in the country now come calling. It was a cool feeling. I think just battling against the odds and the doubt of other people and maybe just being the unknown. I think that was a cool experience for me. It was very, yeah, it was super awesome when I went in the portal, and the portal is kind of a crazy place, and I would suggest anyone going in there that you kind of have the schools that you kind of narrowed down when you go in there that you want to talk to and go to. Because for me, it was nonstop your phone right when you go in. I had a call from BYU in the first seconds, and so it was really quick. And you have every school contacting you, and having to say no to all these schools was kind of hard, but it was good in the sense of like, hey, I appreciate you guys and your guys' program, but I'm really focused on these schools, and they respected that, don't waste their time. And so for anyone going in, have a plan because it can get crazy. And I mean, there's a lot of people that are calling for you and throwing stuff at you, but it was definitely a cool experience to see how many schools reached out and to see the value I brought, and the things that I did didn't go unnoticed. I think that was super cool. But ultimately, I narrowed down to a couple schools, and BYU being one of the schools. But even though BYU wasn't the top of that list, it was kind of funny how it worked out. And I took a shot on BYU, even though they had a pretty good, roster spot in my position. But I just felt like it was right, and it felt like it was another thing to push me that people thought I couldn't do, or and it was a great decision. Obviously, I'm super grateful for BYU, and I mean, I met my wife the first class I had, and so it worked out in every way possible for me, and I'm super grateful for that.
Where is she from?
She's from Orem.
Okay. Well, you had an initial injury when you came. Did you already know you had a broken bone in your foot, or did that happen when you got here?
So I ended that season, and I was obviously in the transfer portal, so you're not really going working out with your old team and kind of just doing stuff on my own and kind of feeling this lingering pain in my foot.
Mm.
Thought it was maybe the shoes. I started changing different shoes, but it just kept persisting. And I thought it would go away, kind of rested it, and get to BYU, and we start playing, and I start feeling that pain again, and it's not really going away. So I tell the trainer, and he's like, "Well, let's go get it scans. Let's go figure out if there's anything there that we need to know about." And we turns out that there was a stress fracture in my foot. And so obviously it's like you come to this school, you have these high expectations, and you're excited to show yourself in front of this new fan base. And all of a sudden it's like, all right, like now what? And so it was early enough to where, we could put a plate in there and try to get ready before the season and get healthy and still be able to play that year. So we do that. We wait. We're super cautious with it. I think we waited like 6 weeks or so before we started walking on it, like and running. And we started playing again right before the season, and it isn't feeling better. We get it scanned again and realize that it never healed, and that they have to go in again and do another bone
Mm,
graft and really get it to heal. And so that was a bummer. And so after that first year, I played a couple games but I knew I was going to redshirt. Um, and so we had a red shirt for that because of my foot, and it didn't heal the first time. We went in, did a bone graft, and put plates in there, better plates, and I haven't felt anything since. So that's been good. Um, but yeah, that was a tough first initial impression to have at BYU, and unfortunately, that's just it's kind of been other injuries that popped up here and there, and they've always been an issue. But like we said, that's kind of how sports go.
I read or I wrote this down. You said in that again in that Deep Blue video, because of the things in my past, it's made me who I am today. So that those adversities, those challenges that you've, it. Let's go straight to last year because two things happened. One that was very unfair to you, and we loaded a video from that Wisconsin game. And before it goes on, let's not throw it on yet, Zach. But I wanted to describe as a fan. Dawson, you were in the corner, and you had two guys trapping you, right?
Mhm.
And one guy's reaching down all of a sudden for the ball. The other guy's standing up, almost throwing his midsection into you. And so
Yeah.
when the guy's reaching for the ball, as you'll see in this video, you do the natural thing in basketball. I was a 4 when I played basketball. Not big. I'm probably the same height as you. I don't know. You're probably taller. But you turn and you protect that ball with your arms and your elbow goes out. This was one of the most unfair calls I've ever seen. Uh, we'll hear what you want to say after we post it or
Okay.
show it here on the video.
Dawson Baker was ejected from the game against Wisconsin for this contact to the groin. You could clearly hear the referee over the broadcast talking about the rule, which apparently has no gray area.
Let's bring in Gene Steratore while the officials are talking to us.
He's just standing there, Dawson.
Wow. Afterwards, this was the official ruling from the referee.
After review, there was clearly non-incidental contact to the groin, which will result in a flagrant 2 foul. White will shoot 2 free throws and retain the ball, and number 25 has been ejected.
That dirty number 25.
Oh man, yeah. I haven't watched that back, and that's kind of crazy. Um, yeah, it was like you said, like in basketball, when things are happening quick, you just react, and a guy pressed in, and you kind of rip the ball away from him. You're not really knowing what state of mind this other defender is in. He's standing straight up, not in a defensive stance at all. And so you kind of and I didn't know in the moment too that it happened at all. Like I lost the ball, we go on the ground, and I remember him getting up and saying something to me along the lines of like being dirty. And I was totally confused and looked at the bench. I'm like, what is he talking about? Like they just doubled me and tried to rip the ball from me, and like I was supposed to stand there or whatever. And so I didn't know any of that happened still until I was in the locker room, and then they ended up announcing that, but I didn't even listen to the announcer say that, but I hear him come over to the coach before he announces it and says 25 is going to be ejected regardless. We know it's not. Um, it was incidental. It wasn't on purpose, but regardless, that's the rules, and he's got to be ejected. And so, and then I'm like, what did I do? Like, I
Exactly.
still don't know. I was not because it's like I didn't like incidentally do it. It's just because I genuinely didn't know what happened until I saw the overview, and it's like, okay, I see where I hit him, but I didn't know in the moment. I'm like, wow, I must have been really bad at what I did, but I still don't know what I did. And so then I ended up getting ejected. Um, and being in the locker room, I mean, that's a whole nother kind of story and just a
Well, I
weird
want to
place to
go there
be.
next. I do
Yeah,
want to
let's,
go there next. So,
yeah,
but
go ahead.
I've never seen a defensive position where a guy's almost just putting his midsection into you. That's not defensive basketball.
Yeah.
Then later I heard that Wisconsin got called for the same foul early in their season in the Big Ten. And that maybe they were even coaching that at Wisconsin.
Maybe. Well, glad they changed the call, and they changed the
Yeah, they
rule book
changed the
after
rule,
that.
didn't they?
So, yeah, so that's a good thing came out of it.
Well, I mean, that was totally unfair. And so, anyway, this kindly young man who served a mission in Guam gets ejected from the basketball game. And tell us what happened next, man, because I didn't prepare that video, but that video was so compelling. Every BYU fan in the world has to love you to death for your passion.
Yeah, I think what's funny is like I'm not crazily over passionate on the court a lot of times, and sometimes I am, but it's not like that's who I am as a person. Um, but in private doors, if I'm watching a Laker game at home, like that's kind of how I am. And so it's kind of funny they caught that whole situation. So I end up getting ejected, right? I go to the locker room and watching the game, and they're starting to creep back in the game. And I was playing really good to that point, and to the point where coach was like, "Hey, we're going to you every single time." And so that was kind of a bummer. And I'm all of a sudden like, you have a bunch of this adrenaline, and then you come back by yourself in this locker room, and everything is just like you can't sit still. You're kind of like, "What is going on right now? This feels like a dream."
And you didn't know a
Um,
GoPro was up, right?
no, no, and so they snuck some GoPro for apparently like the celebration after the game, right? And no idea, it's tucked away in its corner, it's a small little thing or whatever. And so they had the TV up for the game, and so I'm watching the game, and obviously, we have, it comes down pretty close, and we needed one stop, and Moet Mag at the time was guarding their best player to get that stop. Um, and just super passionate about, winning that game, and it meant a lot to not only me, but the guys on that court and every one of us. It was a meaningful year for us. And so I was obviously very expressive about winning that, and I ended up running back on the court, which I wasn't allowed to do. And there was no one there to stop me. And I was like, I would have asked, but there was no one there. So I run back out, start celebrating with some of the guys, and then the security comes running, grabs me, pulls me back to the locker room. But regardless, it was so fun to see the guys come back to the locker room, and it was an all-time memory for me. I think everyone dreams about March Madness, and definitely not the way I thought it was going to go. It'd be celebrating from the locker room, but it happened in a funny way, and they obviously captured the picture. And so when I got back to Provo, we flew back, and KY pulled up to me. He's like, "Hey, did you see that video they posted of you in the locker room?" Or I don't know if they posted. He's like, "Did you see that video of you in the locker room?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "They caught you celebrating at the game-winning possession, and it's like the coolest thing ever." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, they got a video of that?" And then they posted it and whatever, and it turned out to be a good thing. And I think the fan base really, I think, enjoyed it. Um, but it was a crazy crazy time, and it was a memory I'll never forget for sure.
You're a Lakers fan, and when growing up, I was born in Inglewood, and so I was a Lakers fan for quite a while. But it's interesting when we're fans, and we don't think of guys on a team being fans, but those are the best fans.
Yeah.
You and your teammates love each other when they're out on the court, and you can't be helping them. It was so, I don't know. I recommend to anybody look up on YouTube Dawson Baker in the locker room against Wisconsin, and you'll be inspired when we as fans get enthusiastic about our team, it's another level.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what it's all about. I mean, just, the passion and drive and caring for one another on the team. I think that was, I mean, especially last year, we had a bunch of guys that we had a great culture of that, that we cared a lot about one another and what we did on the court, and it was super fun.
I like the culture you had last year, and obviously it's different this year. I'm just an old football player, but I love basketball. So I have a couple questions for you. We won't keep you on forever, but last year at the guard positions, you had you and Yegor and Dallin Hall, and you guys were really good at controlling the offense, hitting the basket. But sometimes we'd platoon in Mawat Mag and Trey Stewart, to maybe shut down guys on defense or just give you guys a rest. And this year, without you in there, we don't have that platoon system, except when Kaba got in foul trouble this last game, it almost looked like we went with a short lineup that really was successful. What do you think about us seeing that short lineup in the future? Is that only going to happen when we're in foul trouble, or might that be a new offensive and defensive and rebounding strategy?
Yeah, I think it's going to be game dependent. I think that's how KY is too, with a lot of his substitutions and how he rolls out in a game plan and stuff. It's all going to be based on the opponent and what we're trying to do, where we're lacking, where our weaknesses are, and where we can capitalize on some strengths. Um, and I mean, if some guy gets in foul trouble, that kind of changes the roster and what we want to do, and we might try to go small to kind of compensate for some other things, which has worked out good for us this year. And I know KY, he's not afraid to try different things and to try different lineups, and he'll do that throughout the course of this year. And I think he's still in that process of figuring out the most he can get out of this group. And so he's going to try some different things. I know that, whether that's small or that's going big. But I mean, you play a team like Arizona, who's got a lot of big guys, you're going to have to play big. And there's a lot of teams like that in the Big 12 that just bring a lot of big guys. And we're gonna have to adjust to a lot of those things, but yeah.
Well, Dawson, I can't wait for your health to be renewed. When will your knee be well enough that you can kind of say, yeah, it feels good, I may or may not, give this another shot?
It's hard to tell. Right now, it's very slow. Everything that I've in my rehab process has been really positive. I've reached every kind of benchmark I've been aiming for. All my goals have been reached, even some that I've kind of overachieved in. So everything's looking really good with the knee, which has been really helpful. I would say getting myself moving and really knowing will take another, 3 or 4 months probably. So I'm starting to feel like, okay, here's what we're dealing with. But I think, I would say one thing is, I'm going to keep fighting. And, I want to go off on my own 2 feet. I think that's a big thing for me is I want to end it the way I want to end it, and I'm going to make that happen. And that's all I'll say for right now. But yeah.
Well, we love you, Dawson. Here at Beyond the Game, we're mostly a BYU centric fan base and audience. What do you have for us that you'd like to share in parting?
I think just gratitude. I think that's, I've felt so welcome here from my teammates, coaches, but also the fan base. It's a great fan base. They care a lot about not us just as players, but I felt like that extends beyond that and us as people, and they care about, things like my mission or things like who my wife is and where she's from, example, like you asked. Those are meaningful things to me. I think we get caught up in being basketball players, and that's how people see us, and based on wins and losses, and is how they treat us. And I think I'm super grateful for a fan base that cares beyond that, and cares about our well-being. So I'm super grateful for them, and I I have and I will continue to put, my body on the line for people like that, and my loyalty kind of resides with people like that. So I'm super grateful for Coug Nation.
So am I. It sure is fun to go to those games and have your ears ringing afterwards and feeling grateful for it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Dawson, thank you for being with us on Beyond the Game, and best of luck in your rehab. And we hope the best for you in the many years of basketball, if that's your goal, or other career choices that you have.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
It's refreshing to me to visit with gentlemen or people like Dawson Baker, these NCAA athletes, these guys who we become fans of, who are part of our team. It's fun to learn about them. Of course, the news this week with Parker Kingston has been difficult, but we as human beings, none of us is perfect. We all make mistakes. Some of our mistakes are worse than others, but we can learn from those. The adversity that Dawson Baker has suffered through injury, it's teaching him to be a resilient young man, to be kicked out of a game which he was just making a good basketball move. That was interesting to me, and I loved the way he responded for his teammates and with his team. There was some interesting news today. Again, it's Friday when I'm recording this. The Utah Jazz were fined. The Utah Jazz and the Indiana Pacers were fined by the NBA today for apparently conduct that is not good enough for the NBA. In other words, they said that they were taking star players out of the game in the fourth quarter. And indeed, that has happened some. Lauri Markkanen, who's one of the stars, maybe the star for the Utah Jazz, didn't play in the fourth quarter of a game that Utah even won. And the NBA commissioner's office said, no, that's conduct detrimental to the NBA. It's commonly called tanking. And with the way it works, teams who don't have a chance or feel like they might not have much of a chance in the playoffs will try to get lower and lower through tanking, through losing games, not necessarily on purpose, but they'll take some of their best players out and lose more games, thereby putting themselves in a better position to get this unbelievably good class of basketball players that's coming out of the NCAA. And of course, we've heard so much about AJ DiBansa and about Jaron Peterson with Kansas, or Darren Peterson with Kansas. So it's interesting that the Utah Jazz had Jaren Jackson Jr. and Lauri Markkanen not in the fourth quarter. According to Utah Jazz, both of these players were on time restrictions. On restrictions for how many minutes they could play in the game because of injury or illness. It's indeed interesting that Jaren Jackson wanted to play after his trade to the Jazz, but now he's gone under surgery for a small lesion on his knee, and he'll be out for the rest of the season. But the NBA is calling that tanking. In most of the fan bases, they're saying everybody's doing that. And indeed, when you think about when Mr. Danny Ainge, one of the best basketball players ever at BYU, when he was the general manager of the Boston Celtics, they were blamed for tanking at a time when later they ended up getting all the best draft picks and making some really astute trades that made the Boston Celtics into the team that they've been for the last 5 or so years. And of course, as Utah Jazz fans, we're hoping that that same thing can happen with trades, which we just made some really good trades, and with the drafts that will be going. So that was interesting news that the NBA is apparently trying to find teams that aren't playing up to the standard that the NBA seems to think that they have. But other people were talking about, well, Washington, Brooklyn, even Sacramento, who the Jazz were playing when they supposedly were tanking, that these teams also are putting rosters in that aren't necessarily their strongest. So that's the news for this week. This is Beyond the Game. Let's go win and start a new winning streak against Colorado. And let's see what can happen next week, midweek, when we play Arizona at Arizona. It'll be interesting to see how our team responds to getting near the end of the season and challenging for higher levels in the playoffs for the Big 12 and for the NCAAs. Loved visiting with Dawson Baker. Next week, we'll have Mr. Fred Roberts. Hopefully he can defend himself from some of the things that his friend Greg Dreiling said yesterday about he and Fred and the crazy game of basketball that we have this time of year. I'm Mike Lacey signing off for Beyond the Game. Thank you.
.365 Sports.